Hi, I'm Elise Vaccaro, and I'm interested in evolutionary and historical perspectives of mating and reproduction, and how our worldview, our values, and our cultural perspectives color what we see and what we fail to see. My research interests are threefold: the extravagances of courtship and mating behavior and how they came to be. Also, the peculiar ways that chemical cues can influence an individual's emotional states and motivated behavior. And finally, our legacy of scientific and medical research on the human body and how it affects how we teach, portray, and treat the body. I have two research areas going on. The first is cannibalistic mating in sea slugs. I want to know, why do nudibranchs engage in cannibalistic mating behavior? And could a shift in point of view explain it? Here's some background. Nudibranchs are the most flamboyant of all marine invertebrates. They're vibrantly colored, adorned with a ruffled mantle on the edges, and festooned with frilly appendages called serrata. They're soft-bodied gastropod mollusks, which means they started out their development like a little snail, and then they shed their shells in their larval stages and straightened out their little body plan. Because they've lost their protective shell, alternate defense strategies are going to be needed. So they'll create things like stabby spears made out of shell-like material. They'll store and raise living stinging cells from their food sources. Think about corals and jellyfish. And they store toxic compounds in that frilly mantle border and in their serrata. They announce this fact with aposematic signaling, so bright colors and highly visible patterns. Let's focus on those toxic compounds. For us, these compounds have uses beyond just being unpalatable. Many have been characterized and demonstrate anti-cancer, antimicrobial, and other properties of therapeutic significance. And so, given the potential pharmacological value of these compounds, I'm really interested in how they're acquired and stored. So now it's time to talk about some of the weird ways the nudibranchs mate. Lately, we found out that they can stab each other in the head with their penises or other appendages, which we see on the top here. There's penis autotomy, in which case the penis is broken off. That's what you can see in the middle. And then in a recent discovery, we've seen how they consume each other's serrata during mating. The purpose of traumatic mating behavior is unknown. Some researchers propose that traumatic mating could discourage sperm competition in subsequent courtships by making the courtships more traumatic and costly. Thus, you get to sire more offspring. But I think the story is more interesting than this, and I want to explore how mating behavior and chemical ecology of nudibranchs may be intertwined. The idea of traumatic mating places this behavior in the context of sexual conflict. And this puts us in the broad arena of evolutionary game theory. So with evolutionary game theory, we have an evolutionary conflict of interest when parties have different costs and benefits. Therefore, they've got different motivations and they want different outcomes from the interaction. Sexual conflict in the context of game theory states that, well, we're going to have an interaction between males and females, and we can't have both of them be winners, so there has to be a loser. However, and here's the kicker, nudibranchs are hermaphroditic, so they have both male and female genitalia. For them, mating is really a mutual exchange of spermatophores. So both parties have the same optimal outcome from an encounter. So the costs and benefits are mutual. From an evolutionary standpoint, what could be gained by mutually assured destruction? In fact, the costs might not even be that costly. Serrata are built to be lost as an anti-predator defense, and they grow back pretty easily. I don't think that this can be a situation of sexual conflict. In fact, the term cannibalism and its connotations need not apply. I don't think this is an act of violence or trauma. I really think that if we realign our perspective about what it means to be a soft-bodied marine invertebrate with tissues that house, say, a thriving microbial community and appendages that can be lost or regenerated with relative ease, then mating can be an opportunity to swap sperm and desirable compounds, even microbes. So rather than discouraging sperm competition, I think this could actually encourage more promiscuous mating because there's so many benefits to it. Moving forward, we're working on our housing system. I want to study the effects of pheromones and hormones to stimulate mating behavior, characterize mating behavior, figure out how serrata loss can affect subsequent mating and fitness, and then characterize the chemical profile of the serrata and how it can change after mating. My second research area is the history of the body. Our understanding of the human body is absolutely colored by the legacy of scientific and medical research, as well as our worldview, personal values, and cultural attitudes. But when it comes to the reproductive system, we have to overcome a particular shame over this part of the body in order to better explore its structure and its function. I'm interested in our understanding of how we know where do we come from, how are we formed, how do we know what we know, and how do certain misconceptions endure? What about our anatomy and physiology unites us, and what makes us different? What matters and who matters? What do textbooks teach us about what is normal versus abnormal? What is important? This really matters. The vast majority of human anatomy and physiology students will go on to be healthcare providers, and this affects how they practice. My research going forward aims to explore the historical use and misuse of human bodies in scientific and medical research, examine current representations of normal versus abnormal human bodies in college anatomy and physiology textbooks, and see how this academic training affects the attitudes, beliefs, and practice of future healthcare providers. Do you have any questions for me? Please don't hesitate to reach out. Here is my email address.